Extending our hands in a spirit of reciprocity, the balance of giving and receiving. Sifa, Zote, Zendekwa, Mumba. All praise is due the Creator. Greetings, I'm Baba Brother D of the New Ashe, the New African Social Health Effort. In our previous video, we spent some time talking about my early years, the first decade of my involvement. Hopefully give some of the people who look at these videos a better idea of who I am and the basis of me being able to assert certain things. We're in that last we're in the last week of the month of November, where a good portion of people in this country are gearing up towards what I will assert is their major holiday. Some of us call it Misgiving. I had to dig through some stuff in my house and pull up a poster from 1982, where our organization, and as I've explained in the earlier days, we were the Al-Kabalan Youth Collective, and currently the African National Science Movement. In 82, we were African Interest Collective. So we went through a few name changes before settling on African National Science. I'm going to come back to the question of misgiving because I want to do a couple of things. I want to challenge our involvement and our embracing of the holidays celebrated by the dominant population in this country. But I also want to point out the fact that a good portion of people who are involved in our movement, a good portion of people who may be subsumed under the term conscious or revolutionary, a good portion of people who are Black nationalists, Pan-Africanists like myself, a good portion of people who are opposed to the economic system that we live under, capitalism, a good portion of people who would consider ourselves anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist, but a good portion of folks still wind up celebrating these holidays, and often enough, I'm the odd man out. So I'm taking the opportunity to point out the fact that if you, and probability is you do celebrate some of these holidays, I'm not disowning you, because if I had to do that, I would disown damn near everybody that I'm close to. And so my understanding of the process of pulling us off of celebrating the holidays of the dominant society, my grasp of what we're up against in terms of that task has certainly grown a lot over the last 37 years, from 1982 to 2019, 37 years. I have gone through some changes when these other American holidays come around, and I'm not down with it. So let me start with Christmas. And again, I want to emphasize, I would like to move you off of these holidays, but I do not want to be divided from you if you are one of the people who continues to celebrate these holidays. As majority of my family, and I don't want to be divided from my family, and I don't want to be divided from my comrades, so we can continue to struggle around these points, but I'm laying out my point of view. I firmly believe that when you celebrate your enemy's holidays, you make your enemy stronger and you make yourself, the group that you're part of, you make us weaker. I believe that. On the spiritual plane, the emotional plane, the physiological plane, right? On the mental plane, the various aspects of human existence, I am convinced that we weaken ourselves. And so even if I can't budge you, make you, nudge you, I'm sure I do nudge some people, but if I'm not able to do that, part of my being consistent, I believe, being consistent in this movement is that I do certain things that many people will not do, but they keep me grounded. They keep me in line with what I'm about in the long term. Christmas. I've often pointed out to folks that if I were Christian, if I was somebody who believed in Jesus, I would be highly upset with American celebration of Christmas, right? And I'm not Christian, and I don't accept Jesus per se, but if I did, come on now, American Christmas and Western European Christmas, the central personality ain't even Jesus. The central personality projected in Christmas is somebody that we're told is a fat white guy who lives in the North Pole. For years, I've been fond of saying that big bag of goodies that Santa Claus brings around represents the loot that they've stolen from the rest of the planet. Because that is the basis of this particular society's dominance on the planet, is that the fact that it takes a good portion of the world's resources while having a much smaller fraction of the world's population. So, and I think a whole lot of people recognize that Christmas, folks, it's an excellent capitalist affair because you are culturally, the cultural weight for you to go buy stuff. If you got kids, your kids are looking for you to buy stuff. If other people have given you stuff, you feel the weight of having to go buy and give them stuff, right? It gets very far away from what people say the thing is supposed to be about. No, I ain't down with none of that. A lot of folks understand that. A lot of folks can take that real easy in terms of saying, well, you're not Christian, so, okay, we won't bother you with that. Let me quickly point out, because some people, well, do you celebrate Kwanzaa? Kwanzaa, for me, is kind of tricky in terms of an explanation because the degree to which Kwanzaa has become Black Christmas is very, upsetting to me. And I personally really don't like the idea. I understand the rationale of presenting our people with an alternative. At the same time, this alternative has been very easily co-optable by the dominant culture in the society. It just like really irks me if people say Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa. I'm like, no, I'm just not with, I'm not with that. But at the same time, when black folks who are making an effort at being culturally conscious, wanting to do something black, wanting to do something African, and engage in Kwanzaa activities, I don't want to be isolated from them. So if you're really trying to be black, I'll come and I'll participate, right? So to the extent that Kwanzaa is about us specifically, right, and not some what I refer to as hyphenated Americanhood, it's like, well, all of the different components of America have their thing, I call it hyphenated Americanism, like Italian Americans and Japanese Americans and Irish Americans and African Americans. Like, no, that's just, but to the extent that folks are attempting to be African and building along lines of the goal of African independence, I will participate in Kwanzaa. The next one that I want to mention, though, there's some difficulties with that, because people are like, well, why would you have a problem with New Year's? Like some people, it is a new year. And just considering the power, the cultural power of controlling time. Your slave master controls your perception of time, having dictated to you that the year begins on this particular date. And it's a date that has no natural significance to it, right? But your conqueror, having conquered us, has us using their calendar. So I'm often correcting people. When you say New Year, I was like, no, it's a new calendar year. A new calendar year. Because a year is the time it takes the earth to go around the sun. And any point in that cycle, somebody could say this is the beginning, because there is no beginning or end. It's arbitrary. I'm told if some Roman emperor birthday was on this date that we call January 1st, but it's bad enough I gotta use their calendar. I gotta celebrate it too? Oh, hell no. So I'll go against the majority of folks that, and when I was working, I used to really hate, leaving the office, and somebody, see you next year. I'd be like, get the hell out of here with that. All right? I mean, like, we really believe, started to say that differently, but very well that ain't a damn thing new. January 1st ain't nothing but the day after December 31st. All right? So new calendar year, because we're using our enemy's calendar, and I am not celebrating our enemy's calendar. We could talk about Martin Luther King's birthday. Martin Luther King's birthday observance, the third Monday in January, is an American holiday. Now, unfortunately, black leadership, a significant portion of black leadership, believes that it is progress when the rest of America adopts or embraces something that's special to us. But I am a black nationalist, a revolutionary Pan-African nationalist who is about African people regaining control over our own circumstances. So from that point of view, we do not measure our progress. We do not say that we're moving forward by having the dominant society embrace something that relates to us. I understand people getting confused around that. I may or may not be able to do a good job with you in terms of understanding the difference, and I intend to improve on my ability to explain and move folks. So I've got some appreciation of Martin Luther King. I am clear that Martin Luther King ideologically did not represent what I am about, but at the same time, you do some reading in terms of Martin Luther King, you can get a better appreciation that goes beyond the "I have a dream" speech, or we as a people will get to the mountaintop. There's some other great stuff in terms of Martin Luther King, but in terms of America government choosing that day, I would say that if you really want to revere King, make time to revere him on his actual birthday, and not necessarily the day that they gave you off. So basically, these big retail companies can have a sale, right? Come on, that ain't what we're about. There's a number of other holidays that we know basically a good portion of people in this country are not about that. I mean, you're going to get the President's Day or Lincoln's birthday or Washington's birthday or so on and so forth. Yeah, we know most folks ain't thinking about Lincoln, Washington, or any other president, and I damn sure not trying to celebrate that. I'm even wondering whether some people real soon will raise objections to Washington's birthday as people are becoming more sensitive to recognizing what George Washington was about. And I'm gonna be curious to see whether some folks move in that direction. I ain't got no time for none of these holidays. We know that Memorial Day, folks aren't thinking about the purposes of that Memorial Day is supposed to represent. Okay. But I want to mention something where you don't get a day off because it happens on Sunday, and a good portion of people are already off. But I catch a lot of flack because I don't do Mother's Day. I don't do Father's Day. And individuals be like, but you have a mother. And I'm like, do we grasp that somebody else is telling you when you should be honoring your mother? Okay? Some act of Congress says that on the the second Sunday in May, you need to honor your mother? Oh, hell no. And I have to go up against a good portion of people that I'm around. And when I say go up against, it's not like I'm coming at you telling you you shouldn't celebrate Mother's Day. I don't, okay? And now I got to contend with folks like, oh, but you got a mother. That is just how under control we are. Father's Day, the third Sunday in June. You know, they don't tell me when I honor my mother. I celebrate my parents on my birthday and on their birthdays. Okay? Get with that, y'all. Okay? Independence Day. Major usage. Now, I'm not a big fan of Frederick Douglass, but I have appreciation for that speech that he gave, you know, saying, what is your 4th of July? What does that mean to a slave? I greatly appreciate that. And so I think you're pretty much clear I ain't trying to push the 4th of July. All right? And you've got Labor Day and Veterans Day. But I want to come to what I believe I would make a case is the number one holiday for the United States of America. The American Thanksgiving. Thoroughly concocted BS that we got taught in school. Thoroughly concocted. They would get you believe that this holiday goes back into the 1600s, all right? Where the reality is that, yes, colonial governments did have celebrations that they referred to as Thanksgiving following victory over murdering Native Americans. All right? I focus on this particular celebration of the United States because it is a observance that most of us have a basic knowledge of the contradiction. Even if you bought the BS that, oh, they couldn't survive the winter and the natives helped them survive and then they all, you know, even if you bought that, all you got to do is ask just about anybody who's made it through elementary school, what happened to the Indians? All of us know that a good portion of that people, the indigenous population of North America, got killed off. That the land that we're on right now is their land. Right? And except for small numbers, they ain't here. Right? And yet, these people have us and damn near everybody else sitting down on the 4th Thursday in November. And that's the reason that I say that this is their most powerful holiday is from a standpoint of ritual and the spiritual significance of ritualized practices. Damn near the whole country is going to do damn near the same thing at damn near the same time, very often with damn near the same the same thing on the menu. Damn near. That's powerful, right? And even though you might say, well, I'm not thinking about pilgrims and Indians and so forth. I'm not thinking about that. I'm just getting together with my family. Well, you got 364 other days in most years to get together with your family. You are basically following instructions being given to you by the people who control the dominant culture, all right? And it's a contradiction. I know that you are not thinking about pilgrims and Indians. I understand that. Neither is the rest of the United States. Even though the children were in school making those pilgrim hats, and somebody is wearing feathers and going through all of that stuff, there's some heavy indoctrination. So even though you do not consciously feel like you're doing what you're doing for those reasons, the ritualization of it is having an effect. Holidays are governments, a country's holidays. This empire, because at other points I've pointed out the error of referring to the population of the United States as a nation, and the United States is not a nation, which is a people, a set of people who share a common ancestry and historical experience. This is an empire. It is a political entity where there is a dominant nation and a bunch of subjugated nations. And we are part of the subjugated nations. And it also has some representation from other nations where people may have more recently moved here and so forth. But we are a subjugated nation. And when you incorporate a subjugated nation into your cultural practices, you pull their allegiance away from themselves to the folks that are in charge. And even if I can't move you off of it, I ain't with it, because my not being with it helps keep me grounded. It helps keep me spiritually in line with our mission. Now, finding this particular poster from 1982, I sat up all night to make this poster. That was back in the days when no computer, right? Some of y'all remember press type lettering. Okay, you had to rub off, letter on a paper. We got a brother to make these drawings that we put in the form of a question mark. All right. I don't know if you can see the folks here. I mean, you got African captives being brought in behind these settlers who are basically trampling over Native Americans. And then you got this circle of African, Native American, and Latino people fighting back. You may or may not be able to read this poster, but it's Thanksgiving, question mark, and picture arranged into a question mark. How can we ignore what it represents? African people in America are victims of the same process that resulted in the murder of millions of Native Americans. America was built by stolen labor on stolen land. And at that time, we were advocating folks to fast in protest of our people's cooperation with our own genocide. Now, I'm not big on the dominant movement activity that protest represents, where we're attempting to appeal to people outside of ourselves for them to do something that we want or something on our behalf. I've spoken at length to that in other videos. There's a video that talks about it's not about entitlements. But I ain't got no problem protesting to my own folks, all right? Because there's a lot of stuff that we do that leads into or supports, maintains our being under somebody else's control. So we said, don't feast on Thanksgiving Thursday. Hopefully you can make your way through reading the account that we gave of misgiving, its origins, that's here. But I want to point out something that I came to understand. See, back in 1982, I actually thought that our group, and those movement people who we were connected to, could drive a wedge between our people's behavior and the dominant society's participation in things like misgiving. And I kind of had to learn the hard way that it was a major task trying to drive that wedge among people who already believe themselves to be involved, down, conscious, revolutionary, all of those kind of terms. Today we would say woke. It's like, wow, it is nowhere near as simple as simply asking the question. The process has been much slower and tedious. I don't know. Something might possibly, for factors that I do not know, something might go viral, and then next year don't nobody want to be down with it, because there's aspects of how media, social media, and even though we know that media and social media are controlled by major corporations and do the bidding of certain political entities, we also know that they aren't able to predict how things might go, and something might unexpectedly go that way. And then somebody like Baba Brother D, now he's in sync, because none of us, we don't eat on that day, all right? But we certainly was not able to do that simply by having the program that we held for a number of years. Tribute to the fighting spirit of Native American and African people. And in the early days of organizing this event, we've had Native American speakers, right? And of course, African speakers. And I will say that I have seen opposition to America's misgiving activity grow over these past 37 years. I myself started fasting on that day in 1978 was my first time fasting. So last year, or maybe the year before that, made 40 years of me fasting on this date, and come this Thursday, I will be fasting. Okay? But recognizing that I do not know how to more quickly or more effectively move the behavior of my people, that the correct thing for me to do is to learn. And that's how I describe my involvement in this movement. I am learning how to organize, because I contend that if we knew how to organize the African community, we would be a whole lot further along than we are now. Giving us the benefit of the doubt, we must not know. And if we don't know, then I need to be engaging in finding out. Lastly, and I realized that I did not get into this in the previous video, talking about my history in the 70s, but we need to point out, whether or not you agree, or to whatever extent you agree with anything that I've said, the most important thing that we would like to happen is for folks to connect with other folks. Not hundreds of other folks, not tens of other folks, handful of other folks. 2 other people, 4 other people, 7 other people, all right? And form something tight. Yeah, I know you already know each other, y'all already cool, and maybe there's certain things that you already do with each other. But there's a whole lot more things that we need to be doing with each other. Including, not the least of which, is learning how to more effectively disagree and challenge each other's ideas without getting bent out of shape. Learning how to criticize folks and take criticism from folks without getting bent out of shape. Allowing folks to be on each other's case. Allowing folks to push each other forward. Taking the responsibility of pushing folks forward. One major area that we need to be pushed forward is the state of health among us is whack. All right? You know this in all likelihood in your own families. Okay? I've been to a couple of funerals over the past couple of weeks. All right? Individuals who are not that old. Okay? We need to be on each other's case, pushing each other forward. We need to be learning independent. We need to be learning survival skills, right? We need to be pushing each other around preparedness, because we do not know what is going to go down. You see the signs around you. Sounds like you sit here in New York and listen to the news. Sounds like California is burning down. All right. Weather phenomena that is catching people all off guard. Right. Polar ice caps melting. Right. We don't know what or how much is going to go down. And we basically chilling. We basically occupy ourselves with trying to figure out how can we get some more from out of this country, okay, we need to be spending quality attention trying to figure out how are we going to survive the fall of this country. Because there's many people who follow the signs. They're not talking about if this thing falls. They're talking about when it falls. And fact of the matter is, whether or not it falls, we need to be in a much more better position to coordinate ourselves than we are right now. And I'm hoping that regardless of what because I can see somebody sitting there now, like, I'm going to eat my turkey. I don't know what you see. I can hear that. All right. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm just mad cool with you eating your turkey and the other stuff that's on that menu. Okay, some of y'all know I'm vegan. I ain't trying to deal with any animal products, but I'm not expecting you to become vegan. Okay, I'm not even expecting you to stop celebrating America's misgiving. Although I will give you a little bit of a hard time in terms of it. I have no problem with what I call provoking constructive guilt. I have no problem with that at all. People be talking, oh, don't be judgmental. Come on, humans, that's what humans do. Humans judge each other. Humans, whether we may not judge each other to our face, all right? But we certainly be like, and you know what he be doing? Let me tell you about her, all right? I ain't got no problem provoking constructive guilt. But if you don't hear anything else that I'm saying come together with somebody. Not who I tell you to get together with. You choose who to get together with, but there's a lot of skills that we need to learn. So, coming across this was, actually, I went looking for this. I was like, I gotta have one of these posters around somewhere. This is a major part of my history, and it allows me to reflect on things that I've learned since 1982. I'm Baba Brother D, and once again, I thank you for your attention.